Welcome, friends. We're back discussing another episode of Futurama, the Hulu Revival, Season 11, Episode 3, this one entitled How the West Was 1010001. And there will be some spoilers ahead. I'm not going to waste any time getting into them. Now let's continue on with the show. So if you've watched my prior couple of videos of this revived series, you've probably got the feeling that I'm not 100% in love with the direction of this show. I felt the original pilot episode or premiere or whatever you want to call it of this revival was a bit stilted and a bit lacking. However, I did enjoy episode 2 quite a bit more. It felt like it was moving in the right direction. And this episode, again, I feel like is a movement in the correct direction, but there's still something missing. There's still a little bit lacking. There's, I don't know, a heart or a soul that seems to still be a little bit vacant here, and I don't exactly know what it is, because there were a lot of great elements in this episode. Little touches about how things actually work, the real physics, the real math, whatever. There were nice background details and nice little inclusions of those things as well. However, the story as a whole, while it wasn't necessarily incredibly face valued like I was thinking it would be, because they did take the whole cryptocurrency Bitcoin thing and kind of slightly tilt it on its head to give us a story set in a quasi Old West, which, by the way, they did actually have a in-universe explanation for, even though it was kind of a funny thing. It makes sense. I don't fault them that. But the whole cryptocurrency thing wasn't played the way I think I would have preferred. They were actually using the real world equivalents we have right now. They were using Bitcoin. There was a reference to Ethereum. So instead of giving it a quasi-futuristic sci-fi update being set 1,000 years in the future like they did in that episode a lot of people hated with the iPhone actually being an iPhone, so that was a little bit of a sci-fi twist on that. I feel like they should have done something similar here if they still wanted to continue with it. Instead of actively using the Bitcoin stuff we know right now, maybe they could have done a slight twist to it and made, like, I don't know, quantum coin or something, some interdimensional currency that can be used between multi-dimensional species. I'm just spitballing right here. Something that's a futuristic sci-fi twist on the concept we have right now. Because as it stands, I already feel like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, things like those have already hit the heights of public consciousness and public awareness, and they've already kind of fallen back down the hole of only the hardcore people are still even involved with them whatsoever. So will this be one of those episodes where you're binging Futurama in the future that kind of feels like a time capsule, or will it age better than I think? But as of right now, I think it was a missed opportunity to put a bit more of a fun sci-fi twist on something. Or the other alternative could have been to play up the fact that we are 1,000 years in the future and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is still in the same state that it was right now. They could have played off the fact that people 1,000 years ago invented this whole cryptocurrency and still nobody really understands how it works, and they still haven't found all the Bitcoin. If they had just, I don't know, hung a lantern on it or lampshaded it, whatever that terminology is, to give us this feeling that they weren't just throwing something at us that's a current day thing, that it was a pre-established long-running thing within the universe. Those would have been my two solutions to make this feel a bit more, I don't know, connected in a sci-fi futuristic series. But there were some nice touches. There were a lot of character interactions. They brought back the Borax kid, who I always kind of liked. They give him a little bit more to do here. They flesh out his backstory. I always like when they bring in some of the interesting side characters and give them more to do, because in his first appearance, he was just kind of this quasi-mystical being. We weren't really sure who he was. We've seen him a couple other times in, like, throwaway background gags and stuff, but he was kind of a prominent character here, although I would say he did kind of come across as a sort of old Westy Zap Brannigan type character. He was treating Fry in this episode similar to how Zap would treat Kif, so it kind of seemed like they just transplanted that relationship instead of developing him into this unique character on his own. I still like him. He's got a cool design. He's got a cool sort of characterization, but I feel like they could have done a bit more with him to make him less of a Zap clone. At least that's my feelings on the situation. We got a lot of voice acting in this episode that didn't feel outdated like it did in the first couple episodes. I felt in the past that some of the voice acting feels a little aged. You can tell the voice actors don't sound exactly the same. And while that isn't necessarily a deal breaker because obviously they've aged and I didn't want them to replace these people anyways, it was noticeable. It was less noticeable in this episode, except for Dwight, the son of Hermes. He definitely sounded a heck of a lot older, but he's a kid being played by, I didn't look it up, but at least probably a 40 or 50-year-old man. I'm probably being generous there, but I didn't want to overestimate the age, so I'm just going to go with that. That's not necessarily a deal breaker, but that was the only one that really stood out to me. And it was nice to get Dwight as an inclusion in the story. I mentioned earlier that kind of Dwight and Cubert were introduced and then dropped pretty quickly. I didn't necessarily think they were the best characters, but they are characters which exist in the universe, so to kind of leave them out and forget they exist, especially when parents are going on these missions all the time, feels a little bit odd. So especially we need to see more of Amy and Kif's children in the future because that same situation. Their parents are going on these missions. You can't just expect the children to disappear. Cough, cough, nudge, nudge, The Flash, where they had a child and just basically forgot the kid existed for 3 or 4 seasons and then maybe once a season. Oh yeah, we have that baby, remember? Nope, nobody does. This episode, I liked all the Old West motifs. Probably the biggest up category of this episode was that gunfight at the end. That was well done. That was a very Futurama type thing where they had a situation that's very common in these Western type things, a shootout between characters, and then they kind of played it on its head by having a multi-angle, multi-vector, I don't know what you call it, kind of a 4-dimensional gunfight between different factions all going on at the same time. Again, Hermes' character arc here was mostly revolving around the limbo thing, which seems to be mostly his entire characteristic, that plus the old smoking thing in the past few seasons. I feel like in the earlier seasons, his bureaucratic nature was played up a lot more. Maybe they'll bring that back into the mix, but so far it seems like that isn't necessarily a part of the new version of Hermes, at least what we've seen so far. Overall, I pretty much liked this episode, but it was missing that magic spark we used to have, and it was kind of just, I don't know, a middling episode, but it's probably my favorite conceptually of the season, but it wasn't necessarily my favorite emotionally because I think the emotional elements of episode 2 just hit a little harder, but this was just a better, well-done episode, well executed, more interesting conceptually. It just didn't have the heart or the soul that these types of stories used to have in Futurama. Again, I'm probably nitpicking. Maybe I'm just coming across as an old man shouting at clouds here. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are probably enjoying this more than I am right now, but I still think there is a lot to get out of this new season, and I'm hoping it just continues to get better as we go. What are all your thoughts? Are you liking the revival of Futurama? Have you not watched it yet? Leave all those comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, do all the fancy YouTube things, but until next time...
Limbo stupid? Where did I go wrong?
Probably when you took up limbo. From what I'm hearing, it's stupid.